In the last session, I mentioned because of the globalization, of the coming of the age of globalization, so the governance capacity of all states on the world, even stronger states like American or China, their governance capacity is declining. Then how the world could cope with this problem? Do we want a world government to solve this problem, to solve global problem? Of course, till now, there's no there's no evidence, no hints that a world government will soon be formed. No, no. But we have an alternative to deal with the problem. That is use a so-called global governance system to deal with the management of global policies, of global politics, in the age of globalization. Globalization is the management of global policies in the absence of central government. Then, without a global government, how we can deal with global problems without without global government? Of course, I need to hear to tell you the main difference between global government and global governance. Global governance is, of course, the absence of central government. There's no one institute called global government, a central government to govern all the world politics, the global policies of global affairs. But there are lots of institutions, lots of mechanisms, and then they join hands together, they cooperate each other to deal with global issues, global affairs. That is, global governance is a broad, dynamic, and complex process of interactive decision-making at global level that involves formal and informal mechanisms, as well as governmental and non-governmental bodies. A lot of institutions, and maybe they are state government, maybe they are international organizations, or even international non-government organizations. They all involve in that. All many of them play a role in global governance. Of course, state and government still is a primary institute in the age of global governance. They're the most important institute to deal with global affairs. But there are some so-called supranational bodies, like United Nations and other intergovernmental bodies like G20 or G7. They all play a role. So we can say global policy is made by a system of horizontal and vertical interactions. Local policies, they are usually made in a vertical interactions. That is, central governments and central government, there's local governments. Like in American, there's a federal government, and then under federal government, then there's state government. Under state government, there's some local governments, city governments, vertical. But global policies is not made by a central, because global policy is not made by a central global government. So it is a very complex system. At top, vertical, state. Above state is some supranational organizations. Below states, there are some local governments. They're all involved in global governance. Among states, there are intergovernmental dialogues or international cooperation to deal with global issues. And then even supranational, on top of government is some supranational global organization like United Nations. Parallel to United Nations, there are some global enterprises of global non-governmental organizations like World Peace, like Greenpeace. This is a non-governmental organizations, or like to a certain extent, the Olympic Committee and the FIFA is also global non-governmental organizations. They're horizontal. They join hands with some or we call it international governmental organization. That is, its membership based on government. International non-governmental organization, their membership is not based on government. So there's a complex net of cooperation, and this forms the global governance. Global governance is the coordination of social life rather than government. It's a coordination system. The importance of global governance is not there's no single body to enforce laws and ask you to comply. They're based on of cooperation and then voluntary voluntary agreement to say follow some rules and orders. So, in fact, even it's like global governance and international organizations are not synonymous to global. Although global governance and international organizations are not synonymous, they're not the same. But the importance of global governance can be reflected by the growth of number of international organizations. The number of international organizations has been expanding since the end of Cold War, that is 1990s. Global governance, in fact, implies that international anarchy can be overcome without founding a world government through cooperation of states, a informal and also voluntary-based cooperation between states. Then we can deal with a lot of global affairs issues without a global government, a world government. What are the main features of global governance? First of all, is polycentrism. The global governance is multi-centered rather than there's a single center. Even you can say United Nations is the most important intergovernmental organization, but United Nations cannot. United Nations, of course, is very important, but in many global affairs issues, it cannot make the so-called ultimate decision. For instance, like nowadays, where we will deal with this so-called we're now dealing with COVID-19. Then United Nations does not order states say to cancel some international sports events like the Olympic or the European Cup, the sports events. The cancellation of sports events is very important as it can prevent the gathering of crowd and prevent the spreading of disease in those events. But UN does not order the cancellation of those events. The cancellation of the not cancellation but deferral, but the deferral of 2020 Tokyo Olympics as well as 2020 European Cups. Those decisions are made by some international non-governmental organizations. That is the deferral of the date of Olympic, of course, is made by the International Olympic Committee. And then the second one is the deferral of the Euro 2020. This decision is made by UEFA. UEFA is also an international non-governmental organization. So we say international organization also play a role. And then it is multi-centered. Like we deal with the COVID-19. We deal with this international global affairs. How the difference is multi-centered. There's no single international organization hold the ultimate power to force other international organization to how to deal with these affairs, like the local government. So the Hong Kong government can order Hong Kong people not together. No, international is not. It's just different. Intergovernmentalism. In fact, state and national government is still very important in the global governance system. Its importance is more than those international organizations like United Nations. It's more important. But what is intergovernmentalism is that state in global governance, its main decision making process is called consensual decision making process. State nowadays this is a consensus among government to impose a lockdown, the city lockdown, or even the country round lockdown. Or there's no global governance or institute to say, okay, if there's outbreak of a disease in your country, then you have to lock down yourself. No, but they come to a consensus. All governments around the world come to a consensus that if there's outbreak of disease in some part of your country, then you have to lock down that part. If there's a country-wide, state-wide outbreak of disease, COVID-19, then the whole nation should be locked down. And then and then also internationally, and if there's an outbreak of the COVID-19 in your country, then other countries can say refuse your citizens to enter their own boundary, to enter their own country. So it's very a consensus, no weak power of enforcement. Say nowadays even WHO does not enforce a global lockdown or enforce any policies to force some countries to do something to combat the COVID-19. But all states come to a consensus that when something happens, then all states should follow those procedures. If there's outbreak of disease in local level, then they lock down that region. If the disease spread to other parts, then they lock down to other parts. This is consensus, not the enforcement. Mixed and involvement. In fact, there's a blurring of public and private divide in global governance, because tackling government, that is global affairs, private institutions sometimes is important as important as say public organization or governmental organization, like to combat the COVID-19. Then many private organizations, like as I mentioned earlier, the Olympic or permitting, the youth, they also play some role, but they're private organization. So there's a blurring of line. And also a lot of international pharmacy enterprises, they also play a part in dealing with this outbreak of COVID-19. They play a part. So they are not an agent of the government. So you can see there's a blurring of public and private divide. And multi-level groups and institutions at various levels also involving global governance, not the central government level or international level. Say Hong Kong is one region of China, but Hong Kong actively involved in combating in combating the COVID-19. Say Hong Kong give a lot of information to WHO, lots of advice to WHO on how to deal with this outbreak of COVID-19. So, and also the international organization, that is the WHO, also gives some instruction directly to Hong Kong, bypassing China, to advise Hong Kong how to deal with this outbreak of COVID-19. Of course, COVID-19 is not too obvious. WHO order Hong Kong to do something or not to do something, because the outbreak of COVID-19 in Hong Kong is not that severe. But the outbreak of SARS, because Hong Kong is so severe that the WHO directly ordered Hong Kong to say Hong Kong to say WHO ordered Hong Kong to how to quarantine 隔離 some patients This is some advice directly from WHO, not through the Chinese government to order Hong Kong to do something and do to others. How to deal with the SARS. Deformalization. Global government tends to operate through norm-based and informal international regimes. There are norms, a lot of norms. They're not based on rules, but based on norms. Say, it is not a rule, but a norm that if there's outbreak of disease in your country, then you have to report it to WHO. This is a norm, not a rule. But norm is something that state voluntarily agree to do so, not forced by some laws to do so. So international global government, because there's absolute global government, so it relies on state their own initiative to voluntarily comply with some international decision. Okay, you see here, global governance is very complicated. At top is some international agencies, and then there's some kind of intergovernmental agencies, and then there's some private agencies. They all, and also national government, local governments. They all involved in global governance. Okay, then we will talk about global governance in environmental protection as well as global financial governance in the next video clip.